Welcome, you're watching Head to Head on uatv, and I'm Oleksiy Matsuka. This year it is already the fifth so-called Russian Spring on the occupied territories of Donbas and Crimea. On this occasion, we want to discuss the latest developments and the possible solutions to the war in the east of Ukraine. To talk about this, joining us in the studio is Oleksiy Matsuka, chairman of the NGO Donetsk Institute of Information. Hello, and thank you for being with us, Mr. Matsuka.
Yes, hello.
In the beginning of spring, for a few days, we observed that militants started kind of adhering to the ceasefire truce, but then they started shelling again. Do you see some kind of tactic in this, or
No,
what can it mean?
I think that it's always the same tactic on this situation. And
what is it about?
I mean that always we saw shelling and bombing around Donetsk city, around Lugansk, and pro-Russian separatists use the similar guns against Ukrainian people in Ukrainian part of Donbas. And I think that we can see that situation not change during 4 years after the start Russia Spring, as you mentioned before.
Mm-hmm. But now, according to the ADO headquarters, it is often seen that it is kind of silent in Luhansk region, and mostly the provocations are occurring in the Donetsk region.
Yes, it's absolutely correct.
Why so?
But I don't know the reason why pro-Russian militants, they use tactics against Ukrainian, but I think that it depends on very big numbers, data, what happened in Moscow and how they, according to their methodology, how they see Ukraine in their Russian world. And I think that situation on the front line, it is just one point in big game that organized 4 years ago from Moscow.
In your opinion, what this game is about?
This game that they wanted to involve Ukraine in the sphere of impact, and maybe...
But Ukraine already was in their sphere of impact. I mean, Russia had a huge impact on Ukraine.
You know that they want to see that they own politicians in Kyiv who provide their political line inside in our country. So they use Donbas region and Crimea in this big game, and they hope, I think that they hope Putin to build Soviet Union in Ukrainian part also of in Donbas, in Ukrainian part of Donbas, and also in all Ukraine. Mm-hmm. This is the main goal of this administration in Kremlin.
So your opinion is that Kremlin wants to seize Ukraine as the country, basically?
I think that they want to see Ukraine as a part of big project Soviet Union.
Yeah, to seize, yes. to show the aggression on the whole territory of Ukraine. What is happening right now on the residential areas in the Donbas conflict zone? How much do local residents suffer?
You mean occupied territory?
The occupied territories.
Yes, it is. I think that more than 1 million people who stay inside, and they continue work and live on this territory, and they cross checkpoints to Ukrainian part, and that Ukrainian services, they mentioned that last year more than 1 million people cross checkpoints from occupied territory to Ukrainian part and back, and it means that we haven't civil war in Ukraine, that our citizens want to get a lot of services from Ukrainian part, and also the narrative that inside Ukraine we have civil war, it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. You know that they use this narrative against Ukraine from Kremlin and also in Russia propaganda.
Mm-hmm. How do you see this conflict, this war, to be resolved?
I think it's a very complicated question, but
yes.
I think that for this year, the main 2 points. First one, it is that leaders of Normandy countries, they will meet during next month, as mentioned President Poroshenko in Volnovakha yesterday last weekend. And also the second point that Trump invited Putin in White House, and maybe these 2 points can combine in big process that name peacekeeper for this territory.
So you see peacekeeping mission as a way to restore peace?
Yes, it is a way to peace, and also people in Donetsk and Luhansk, they wait this, but we are afraid.
The local residents, you mean?
Yes.
So this is basically the direct information from the occupied territories.
Yes, and also what interesting one moment that I saw on local press that controlled by Russia, pro-Russian separatists, they give very aggressive messages against peacekeeper, and also they demonstrate that officials they don't want to see other side on their territories because they're afraid to lose their power, and also, but average people they want. And as I had a lot of conversation with people who live in occupied territory, and they said that if this peacekeeping process can change situation, they support this even international administration. But
meaning change situation, joining back to Ukraine.
With security, and also with available of services, bank offices, and other. But the main point for people, it is a security question, and second, humanitarian dimension of this crisis.
So basically they don't feel safe over there. They need peacekeepers to feel safer. But could you tell us some approximate percentage? How many people would support peacekeeping mission in Donbas? Is there any data?
You know that it is not absolutely, you can't to organize research on that territory, but if we as a journalist can demonstrate the message that peacekeeping process, it is just as one of solve of this difficult situation, I think that majority can support in Ukrainian, in the occupied part, and also I think that in our Ukrainian part, and big Ukraine, as I said, name it, the people also support this idea, because you know that Fond Bekeshkina, Fond Democratic Initiative, is Kiev-based think tank. They have had results of research that majority of Ukrainians see people who live in occupied territory as Ukrainian citizens who have very difficult conditions now, who are faced with terrorists and others. So people in big Ukraine want to build this bridge with people in occupied territory, and I think that people from that side also can give the hand to Ukrainians to create this new bridge between these territories.
Well, and media could help with this, but how much is Ukrainian media present on the occupied territories, or is it at least present?
I think that it's available. It's available through internet, but of course it is absolutely censorship inside from pro-Russian groups, and they control all media sphere in occupied territory.
Do they ban Ukrainian websites?
Yeah, some sites ban, of course, but our site, News of Donbas, banned since 2014, and it is systematically work from that side that they try to find people and journalists who cover situation in occupied territory, and they punish them. You know the situation with this Oleksiy, who is a blogger, he is a journalist, he arrested last year, and this year he spent 1 year in prison. He sit and also, and Oleksiy, it is a famous person who know what we know about his situation, but also we know about other studies, other cases. We organized every year Donbas Media Forum for journalists who work in occupied territory as international freelancers or journalists who help international media to cover this, and also for journalists who work in Ukrainian part but who cover Donbas situation. And this year we want to gather together people, journalists, media in Kramatorsk to discuss how we can survive on this and how we can protect our independence position, what we should do in Ukrainian part and also in occupied part, how we can get news from that side, independent news without propaganda and other. So it's very difficult questions because the war on our territory in Ukraine, and we faced with this every day. That side thinks that we are enemy for them, for their state and other, but we want to demonstrate all society in Ukraine, in occupied part, that journalists, media, it is you can trust us because we independent media.
Speaking about UN peacekeeping mission as the way to restore peace in the occupied territories, recently the Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko announced his visit to Berlin, which is going to happen next week, and they will discuss the deployment of UN peacekeeping mission. But what about Russia's veto right in the UN Security Council? Do you believe that Russians would let this the deployment of peacekeepers to happen in a way that Ukraine wants?
Now we have just one project of resolution, and this project from Russia Federation. I think that Ukraine can also send our project of resolution for this mission, but Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs Klimkin mentioned that they're afraid that United Nations organization, they can adopt some resolution neutral and not very interesting for Ukraine. So Ukraine wait now, and now we have just one formal document in New York. It is just from Moscow and their vision of this situation. But I heard that Ukraine also prepare own project of resolution, and we wait. We as a journalist, we wait what they wrote on this document, what about, and how they can see this solution. But we know from open sources that Ukrainian government, they want to control border,
Ukrainian-Russian border,
and other items from Minsk agreement.
Yes, but so then what can be neutral about the resolution which could be voted in the UN Security Council? I mean, that Russian side wants the peacekeepers to be deployed only on the confrontation line. Ukraine wants peacekeepers to be deployed everywhere, including the border between Ukraine and Russia.
But the last decision will be from the UN Security Council, of this.
But would you expect Russia to veto this decision, or would you expect?
I think Russia also tried to find a solution for this. So I think that they want to find the model how they can save their face on this situation and how they can leave this territory, because it's very difficult for them to support occupied territory. You know that they ban Vodafone mobile service on that side, and what the reason was. They want to get more money from local residents on their budget, and they demonstrate for Kremlin, for Moscow, that they can get this money from the territories. Yes, and they demonstrate that there is sustainability on this process. So they try to find new models how they can be more independent from Moscow budget, and I think that one of this way it is Vodafone, and also they try to build sustainability economic model with reintegration in Russia Federation after. But the main goal of Ukraine to save that territory in our sphere of influence, and also to support local residents, because all people who live on that side, they are all Ukrainians and have Ukrainians IDs.
Yes.
So but from Russia we see the signals that they want to leave the territory because they spent less money for this during last year, and the next period they said representatives who control the territory to find new sources for local budget.
So you mean that they show some signs that they want to restore peace in these territories as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for your opinion and for this conversation.
Thank you.
That was Oleksiy Matsuka, chairman of the Donetsk Institute of Information NGO. Thank you for watching Head to Head, and stay with UATV.